Back. It's a new season. It's a new day. That means we got new opportunities, new blessings. I'm just excited today to start our new season right here on the WCEG Network. The network is expanding. I mean to tell you, things are happening, and we got some exciting news that we'll introduce to you and tell you about later. But I'm excited to come back on. We changed the name of the show. It is now the Farmer Report. And listen, I've got some new co-hosts, some new things happening, and I just want to make sure that you are part of it. We want to just encourage you, bless your life, increase your life, multiply your life, and make you better and make you live in a better realm of what you're trying to do. I just want to make one announcement. Y'all know we did this last year. There was our former co-host, Ms. Kim Bader, who kept me on point to make sure I didn't say nothing out of the way. But all the views and the opinions of this show are the expressed opinions of myself, the host, Dr. Keith Farmer, and my co-host. They're not anything connected to WCEG. We produce our own show. So if you want to argue with somebody, fuss with somebody and go off on somebody, you can certainly look up me on social media. Connect with me, and I'll be glad and honored to speak with you kindly. All right, we're going to do that. So today we're just excited. We got some wonderful co-hosts that are joining us. Some are new, and some have been back with us before, and we're kind of expanding their role this year. So I'm gonna start off with a gentleman I've known. I don't know if it's been 30 years or I don't know how long it's been. I remember Dr. Ernest Lee. I think I met you during the time of Let the Healing Begin.
Yes.
How long has that been?
Close 15? To 20 years now. Close to 20 years? Almost. Yeah, almost. Mm-hmm. He
is an awesome producer, writer. He's a father. He's an entrepreneur. He's a musician. If you need a car, he can help you find a car. He's a car man. It's just so many things that he does, and I'm just honored to have him on and to be one of our main co-hosts. Last year, he talked about different things as relates to different things, artists and all that. So what are you going to talk about this year, Dr. Lee?
Well, this year I wanted to focus on, we get so caught up, and I know you just made the declaration that the expressed written consent is not on you. So I just want to say, no, but we get so caught up on when we go to church, and those that are church people and those that are matriculated through church for years. We get caught up on being churchy sometimes, and everything is spiritual and everything God said this. And I'm not here to say he ain't said this or that. It ain't my business, it ain't my place. But we need to always remember that he created the total man. And so what that means is we have to begin to minister to the total man, the needs that we all have as just people. It's just, people living this life, and also Christian people living this life. But just, we get caught up on the things that we can't control sometimes. So I want to talk about this season on just how do you worship while you wait? Worship, we know, is not just, we think worship is just sitting in church and lifting your hands and listening to music. Worship is your lifestyle. It's your dedication to God. It's what you do on a day-to-day basis to get what you need done. So how do you worship, or how do you live while you're waiting on your change to come? So that may be working on your health. It may be working on your spiritualness. It may be working on your relationships. So just things like that is what I'm going to hit this season on: how to worship while you wait, how to live while you're waiting on your change to come.
Okay, that's interesting. That's going to be how are you living and what you're doing to wait. Nobody likes to wait, but
yeah,
it is what it is, right?
Exactly.
God, that's the one thing about the God that we serve. He has his own timing, his own place. He does things the way he wants to do them, when he wants to do them. He don't care about you. You got to wait till he's ready to open that door. So Thank you. Looking forward to some great things that you're going to bring to us this year. And we thank you for coming back to us this year as our co-host. Now, I'm going to go over to two new co-hosts. Both of them, in the last couple of seasons, have been guests on our show. And I'm just excited to have this young lady. She is a mother. She's an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's a domestic violence advocate. And she has such a wealth of wisdom. And let's welcome as co-host of our show, The Farmer Report, Miss Katina Davis. Good evening and good afternoon, Miss Katina.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you be a part.
Absolutely.
So this season coming up, you're the new kid on the block. What you gonna talk about?
I would like to talk about impactful issues surrounding and impacting the Black community. I'll be the person to have those tough conversations, because without the tough conversations, we can't start the healing. And someone out there watching this could say, hey, dang, I felt that. I think she was talking about me. Let me seek therapy, or let me self-reflect and course correct, because what I'm doing is not the right thing. So that's what I'm here to bring to the show this season.
Now, you mentioned a word to me. Say you should never mention that word, because that word stuck in my mind, and I just I was trying to deal with it. You gave me a word the other day when we had our conversation. You said colorism. What's colorism?
Colorism is the act of favoring one skin tone over the other. And it predominantly happens. It's not just secluded to the Black community. It happens with communities of color, but it happens more often in Black communities by Black people to other Black people. Have you ever heard the saying, oh, all light-skinned girls are pretty, or you're pretty to be a dark-skinned girl? Those are skin preferences. And at the end of the day, those are extensions of racism. And we have to talk about that.
And wait a minute, are you saying that's among the Black African-American?
Yes.
We prejudice one another?
Absolutely. Yes. It might be coming to a point where we're getting better because we're now having these conversations, but it absolutely does exist.
You have to. Does anybody believe that? My heart, I have to beat my heart, make sure I got that. You mean to tell me that we are prejudiced of one another?
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna have to bring that up in times to come.
I got you.
I may bring it back up in just a minute. Let's go to our other co-host who's been with me the longest, Dr. Michelle Robinson. You know, last season, in the middle of the season, just about the end of the season, her husband transitioned, and there's some things going on that she's taking care of today. She couldn't be with us. Perhaps she'll be back with me first. But this is my friend and brother. The good thing about him, he is also he's a bishop in Lord's Church. He's an entrepreneur. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a father. He has so many things that he does. He's a great author. He writes books. He's just a great man of God. And I've known him probably the second year when I moved to Atlanta, some 30 years ago. Yeah, it's been that long wow, we know each other that long. When he had a church in Riverdale, Georgia, it's called New Life. I served him in his church. And this man of God is a great man of God, man of wisdom and man of honor. Let's welcome to our show's co-host, Dr. Willard Smith. Dr. Smith, bless you, man.
God bless you, Doc, and God bless my sister and my brother that we just met, and to my sister that just spoke about this racism thing. A moment of transparency. I was definitely guilty of that. So I relate to what she's saying. Yeah. I don't know if I should be proud of that fact or not, but it's true. So I guess you want me to talk a bit about what I made.
Yeah, what you gonna talk about this season? Because you have a lot of stuff to talk about, and since you said that you had a moment of testimony, we're gonna come back to that in just a minute and cover a little bit of that. But what did you?
I don't know if it was a testimony though.
well,
I'd rather say it was an error of my way.
Okay, so we're gonna have to discuss that. But after you tell me, because I want to know. Okay, let's stop right here because you didn't got me. I'm all. So Katina brought it up. She told me what it was. So you're saying that in your lifetime you had to deal with that?
Well, I don't know. I won't say I had to deal with it. I'll say I was a product of what she's speaking about. I had that, if you will, syndrome as well. I know where it came from. I know when it started. I don't have that now, but it was a reality in my life. There was preference.
So and the preference was light skin to dark skin. You preferred
light skin.
Okay, so you preferred light skin, and that relates to your relationships with women, I guess, because it wouldn't be no other thing.
Oh, this gonna be good tonight.
No, it was with light skinned women, a certain length of hair, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I know where it came from. I know exactly where it came from, and I had to take it upon myself to get rid of that. So what she's saying is real. It is real. And I think everybody gets that quote unquote spirit some kind of way. I certainly did. And yeah, so I'm guilty.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to find out what you're talking about. Because Katina ready for you.
Okay.
She's ready for you.
So to answer your question, what am I going to talk about? So there's so many things that Dr. Foreman said that God has given me over the years. And of course, being a publisher and author and writer and all that stuff, I do a lot of different stuff. But I think one of the things that I'd like to bring to the table is valuable information about relationships, particularly marriages, both determining if you should get married and determining how to continue marriage successfully. I want to do it in a very unconventional way. I think my sister used that word. That is a little bit against the grain of what most people normally believe. I'll probably introduce 3 of my books that are relationship related. Actually, 4 of my books. No, 5 of my books that are actually relationship related at some point. Some of the material in them are vital. I will speak to both the singles and married couples and give them a different perspective on how to deal with marriage, both from a scriptural and spiritual perspective, and a perspective that is both practical and realistic.
Okay. Now you told me about, so y'all know that's watching us, I had individual conversations with everybody. And one of the things you said to me,
I can hear you, go ahead.
You have a book, he got a good book, he went to get the book. He wrote a book called Do I Stay or Do I Go? So
the title is actually The Decision. Should I stay or should I leave? That's the actual title of it.
So give me 3 points of that book right quick to tell people, because somebody watching me right now in the middle of that situation. Let's help them right quick.
So one of the things that I think hits everybody is the chapter that talks about when is it time to quit, and how do you know it's time to quit? There's another chapter in the book that talks about breakup etiquette, is what I call it. There is a way to break up. There is my opinion, proper way, and there's an improper way to break up.
Say it again, sir, for the people in the back. The people in the back, they didn't hear you.
So there is a chapter called Breakup Etiquette that talks about the proper way to break up and the improper way.
Break up.
We're gonna be real good for it. Breakup etiquette. And then lastly, there's a chapter that's entitled Think Before You Make the Decision. And I think those are 3 of the ones that I get a lot of feedback from.
Okay. That book is available on Amazon. He's going to talk because I'm going to push him as we throughout this season. He's going to do it. So y'all get ready for that. Okay, so Katina, coming back to you.
Yes, sir.
So we heard what Bishop Smith and Dr. Smith said about his desire for light skin and his prejudice for light-skinned women with long hair.
Okay.
How do you deal with that? What should we say? He don't deal with it no more. He didn't have the issue no more. But there may be somebody else that's watching.
I mean, I can't really downplay someone's preference. I mean, everyone is entitled to their preference, but I will say is that people with that preference have to dig deeper and find out why they feel that way. What has happened to them, or what have they seen inflicted upon people with darker skin throughout their life? Because as we know, this started in, when Black people were enslaved, right? Because we know that the lighter skinned folks receive preferential treatment over the darker skinned folks. And this trickled on down over time. And even I am a product of it myself. You know, I was burnt in the oven too long, or I was never picked. You know how you had the little games on the playground where you be somebody's girlfriend. I was never ever picked, and I would hear them saying, "Cause she too black, she ugly, cause she black." You know what I mean? And then when I got older, I would start saying, "Man, all light skinned girls are pretty." I would start saying to other dark skinned girls, "Oh, you're pretty to be a dark skinned girl," not knowing how foolish I actually looked and sounded, because I'm dark skinned, right? So I had to grow up and really educate myself and grow out of that prejudice and begin to educate other people, because it's very damaging for children that experience it during their childhood and adolescence. I mean, I was messed up, child, and I had to figure out where all of that came from when I started therapy.
I also think that, though, if you look at what's promoted even on TV and media, there's a lot of stereotypical things that's promoted as it relates to skin tone as well. You know, it's not, up until recently, you know, I think with the Viola Davises of the world, that they actually put a darker skinned person in the leading role. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think some of that comes from what we see. You know, we practice what we see sometimes by just assimilation. My brother always says, you know, you learn stuff by revelation and observation. So some stuff we learn by observation. You know what I'm saying? We observe people having a certain skin tone or a grade of hair, and we say, "Oh, I think that looks good, so let me try that." And it has really nothing to do with, you know, we look at the outward, and of course, not to get churchy with it, but, you know, we always say God looks at the inward, but we don't look at the inward. We only look at the outward. So, you know, that's why we end up in those kind of situations where we just stereotype people based on what they look like.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. So, okay, somebody got some feedback coming from somewhere. I know where it's coming from. But Dr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
So you say you knew where it came from. You know when it started. Pass it.
So honestly, you know, the world of psychology accepts the thought that we are all either product of our environment or we have learned behavior. Let me turn my earpiece off because it may be me echoing. Hold on a second.
That's it.
Okay, can you hear me now better?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, I can't speak for anyone else. My father was very partial to light skin. And he used to say jokingly, on one hand, and I quote him, "I like them light, bright, and dang near white," except he substituted another word for dang. That was his saying. Now, he said that jokingly, but he was serious about it, because I remember the first time my brother brought home a dark-skinned young lady, and my father met her. When the young lady left, my father had my brother in tears. He talked about her so bad. The second place it came in is, I don't know if Sister Katina is old enough to remember this moment in history. My brother may not be either, but there was a time when light-skinned brothers were fashionable. Us dark-skinned brothers weren't fashionable. That was right back during the Michael Jackson era with the afros and all that kind of stuff. So it was just that way, publicly speaking. But then there came a time when light-skinned brothers were no longer fashionable and dark-skinned brothers were fashionable. I understand that's the way it is now. I'm not sure because I don't get into that. But my thing came from my dad. My dad instilled that, perhaps innocently, and maybe he didn't really mean it, but I took it to heart, and it seemed that he did, because every time I brought a light-skinned girl home, he was up and down, just up about it. So I never brought a dark-skinned woman to meet my dad or my mom until I got old enough to realize, no pun intended, ladies, but I had the most trouble out of light-skinned women. That's just me. That's my experience. Let me have that.
I saw some testimonies come up for a minute there. Wow. Okay, so that wasn't the subject that we were going to discuss, but I just happened to, when I hear something, that colorism stuck in my mind.
It's real.
And it's something that we need to address.
Yeah.
So how can we say what the man is doing when we're doing the same stuff ourselves?
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Smith, what you just said basically went back to what I stated first. What people with that preference have to dig deep and explore what they've experienced or what they have seen in their lives that has influenced that preference. So that was like spot on. But as a community, we have to continue to have these conversations, tough conversations that we tend to want to avoid because they're traumatic or triggering, or we don't want to take any accountability. But that's the reason why we can't advance further as a people, because we avoid the tough conversations. We have to have them because we have to stop this. We are damaging one another over and over again. It's a traumatic cycle that we're repeating.
Wow. Let me add this too. Now, there is different connotations that is assigned to certain words. And if you notice, like even in society, when we talk about anything Black is always ascribed to something negative. Black magic, the Black sheep of the family, Black this, Black that. And we always think of, not to be racist, but we think of when we say white is pure or it's untouched, and I think those are things that have been ingrained in our mentality as well down through the years. Anything that we associate with Black is usually negative. You know what I'm saying? And so I think we just somehow keep perpetuating the same thought because we don't do research ourselves. We don't understand that, even the book I read a couple years ago called The Black Presidency. It was about Barack Obama, but he used that as a euphemism, I believe, because it was kind of like he didn't mean it in the Black, like he got that to get your attention, but he was saying, he totally brought that out. In other words, it was not a Black presidency. We expected him to be a certain way because he was Black. But he kind of went against the grain. And so we got to understand when you start saying stuff is Black and, there's a Black mark on your credit, a Black mark on your lungs. I mean, everything is associated with negative when we think of Black. So we have to change the way we think about it as well when we think about the color Black anyway.
And that's why, exactly. And that's why I believe that we should continue to explore and promote colorism as a broader conversation, not only in the Black community, but in America in general, and explore the attitudes and acceptances that associate whiteness or the likeness with beauty. Okay?
Sister Katina, can I give you another transparent moment?
Uh-oh, here we go. It's getting good.
Oh, Lord.
And obviously, I must think a lot of your knowledge and wisdom to even do that. But some years ago, I went through a divorce. I was married to a very high-powered African-American woman who did not understand the difference between independent and interdependent. So our relationship was always a struggle because unlike a lot of men, I'm quote unquote a man's man. And no matter how much money she made, I held everything down. But here's what happened when we divorced. And I'm not ashamed of that. I vowed to never date a Black woman again. So my next relationship was with a Hispanic. Now, the reason I felt that way was in part skin color, but another part of it was a cultural thing. So question to you, is there a connection between the attitudes in different cultures of women, particularly Black women, over women that may or may not be quote, quote, Black, period? Because in the mind of some men, I'll speak for some that I've spoken to, they simply feel that Black women, and they put them in a general pool, are not the kind of women that's good for Black men, but rather they say, and I've heard them say, that white women and other women of other races treat them better than Black women, and that's their reason for preferring other colors, races, than Black women.
So I threw that out to be
clear. I threw that out the window because my wife is, my present wife is a beautiful dark-skinned woman.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack with that. First of all, Black women, we have been bred to be independent since we were going through enslavement. That's number one, right? Like we had to take care of their babies, our babies, and everything else, right? And throughout time, we also had to work. Things began to evolve for Black women, and we began to carry a lot on our shoulders. So people love to say, oh, Black women aren't moldable, they can't be led, but don't hurt me now. The man got to know how to lead in order for the Black woman to be led. And secondly, there has to also be some grace given that this is just within our culture. This is who we are. We are independent, strong women with strong, deep ancestral roots. You understand? And that other race that you spoke of, they are coddled. Of course they submit. That's all they know how to do is follow. We are leaders. It's in our blood. So unless a man can match that and is able to allow a woman to evolve in her own way and support her in the way that she needs to be supported and also lead, then I mean, he's no match for her. But I don't think that you should box all Black women into that same narrative. I think that's something that was just created by somebody who wanted to sleep with someone else, and it just spread around, you know.
Now
Okay,
let me add this.
before you, Smith, I just got a message when somebody's watching this said it's a laugh out loud, but it's don't marry a Black woman if you want true submission.
Well, that's not true. And what I was going to say to Sister Katina is, I consider myself a decent brother. So consequently, the guys that I hang around are decent brothers. We're not your rappers, your guys that hang out on the local street corners selling weed, whatever. We're all productive men. So here's what we talk about in our moments of brotherhood. We're not looking for moldability.
No.
A woman in life who understands her role and her function, who understands your role and your function, and each person live together to minister to each other. Now, from where we're sitting, I agree in part with what you said, but from where we're sitting, women back in the day were very, very supportive to the men in their lives until the industrial age came along and stripped women from the idea that they could be equal with their men and don't have to necessarily be, quote, as it were, better. God did not create men and women to be totally equal. They were created equal in essence, but not in function. There's a difference. And where the problem comes in now, as far as me and my boys are concerned, is the independent woman does not understand interdependence. Even in Genesis, God never intended for women or men to be independent. The Bible's context is interdependence. We work in union, we work in harmony with each other. This independent thing came from the industrial age, and women have been taking that and running with it ever since. Now, I'll grant you that some brothers are not worth the salt on their bread, but neither are some women. And I think we have gone to a society now, as women are concerned, where their independence took them away from understanding you can be independent. Nobody wants to enslave you. What we want as men is we want it working together without you thinking, I don't need no man.
But where did this come from, though? Like you said, we were very submissive at one point of time, but then also the crack era came. People went to jail, people was locked up, people OD'd, people died. Women had to step in and play both roles, right? For long periods of time. So when she finally meets someone and settles down, or when her daughter finally meets someone and settles down, and she doesn't know the difference between the two of what you just spoke of, that really isn't her fault. That's where you come in and you have to dig deeper and say, hey, baby, let me talk to you about your past. What was your mom and your dad around? Let's figure out the dynamic. And then it's up to you to be patient and figure out how you can work with her to help her understand the difference between the two. But a lot of Black women have not had that example in their home because their mom has been completely overwhelmed with playing all roles in the household. They don't know how. But that's not all. That's also not race specific. That can go for any race, any dynamic.
Well, it can, but here's the thing. There are some cultures that groom their women to understand interdependence. There are some cultures that groom them, that you can be successful, a successful woman, but understand you have a function, you have a role. You know, I'll give my wife as a classical example. My wife is a couple of years older than I am, right? But and she's a professional, she's a licensed therapist, psychotherapist. But in our home, when we come into our home, even on our television show, we do a show together on television. And even on the show, I never have to say to her, you're not being submissive. I never have to say to her, stop trying to be this or that, because it's just ingrained in her that this is my role, this is my function, I work together. Now, I agree with you with what you're saying 100%.
The question becomes, though, because it does happen, I think we have to admit, it does happen more in the African American community than it does in other cultures.
I'm a statistics person. I don't have the statistics, and I like
I
to
got
speak
them, I
straight
see 'em.
facts. So I
You want me
can't. Absolutely, if you want to share those and put those in the chat. But all I'm gonna say is this: like, I love my people. I love Black women. Someone's preference is going to be their preference, but don't go spewing these lies over, your own race, stating, "Hey, it's better to date this type of woman than that type of woman." Have faith in your women, and if you're really a praying man, pray over your Black women and pray that on them. Say, "Hey, please help them come to this realization. Please help them come here, come there." Don't speak negatively of them and tell them, "Hey, steer clear. Don't marry a Black woman." That's not what you do. And honestly, also, Ernest, though, what is the extent of this control you speak of? Like, what exactly are you wanting them to submit to?
You asking me?
Yeah, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I'm not asking a woman to submit. So that would be a question I would answer.
Let me say this. This is the thing, though. I think we have to get to a point where I think my brother, I had a conversation with one of my friends that's in the industry yesterday. And I had to ask my brother, he's a pastor, bishop, and I had to ask him a question because in my mind, I wanted to answer the question based on what I knew. But sometimes you gotta get wisdom. And I think sometimes we lack wisdom because we don't want to ask questions. So you spoke of having a woman, she needs to be taught. But sometimes when you try to tell women certain things, it's just women in general, I'm not saying Black or white, they don't want to hear it from you because they don't respect. Like sometimes it's a lack of respect because we come into situations with our guns drawn already. We don't come into what Dr. Smith just said about interdependence. That's a great word. It's independent, but it's inter. In other words, are we entering into this relationship cold? Or are we entering with our guns drawn? Like, I ain't about to do this. You ain't gonna tell me that. So it starts off on the wrong foot. So you talking about trying to help somebody, because a man will tell you, well, I don't need you to raise me either. I mean, it could be either way, go either way. So at the end of the day, I mean, sometimes I just think Black women, because they are stronger, I think that's why they get the worst rap, because they are much more stronger. But that is not their fault. You're absolutely correct. My mom and dad was married for over 40 years. I'm saying, but my mom is strong. And my dad was extra strong. But at the end of the day, they knew their roles. I think if you go into a situation with understanding, that's why the Bible said, all that getting, get an understanding. What is going to be the role? What is going to be the monetary system that we use? How are we going to raise our children? I was raised this way, you was raised that way. See, that's again, we're not, the Bible said, with love and kindness have I drawn thee. Sometimes you got to come down off the ego and say, hey, we're going to do this together. So how should we do this? Not, hey, I'm not going to do this. Because I've dated people before. Well, first of all, I'm going to let you know, I ain't even said nothing to you. What are you talking? I mean, nobody said nothing. You fighting, who you fighting? And so again, if we want to make things work and make things conducive to both parties, it's called, the Bible says, when you leave your mother and father, you shall become one. You come twain together. So that means we are co-laborers in this thing. So it's not about what you did and and let me tell you, like, we have to find out what works for us. And then sometimes we talk too much to other people. What works with Bishop Farmer's relationship may not work for me. What works with Katina's relationship may not work for me. Now, it's good to get wisdom. But in all that get understanding, because that may not work for my house and it may not work for your situation. So again, we have to come with our egos in check, number one. And it really don't matter what color you are, because again, we have to say, hey, this is what we're going to
do.
Okay.
And I'm in agreement with my brother, and I'm in agreement with my sister as well. I think that we have to acknowledge that the women of the 21st century think differently about that subject. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong and different, the younger generation thinks differently about it. And I agree, it does come from women not having that upbringing from their mother. In some cases, I think it does. But I can't let, as a man, me personally and my boys, we can't let, and that's another one of my other books to talk about preparing for the marriage, not the wedding. But we can't let your issue be a part of our lives, because then you stamp out the opportunity for us to develop us. Which is why premarital counseling is important. Before you marry me as a man, you need to know your own reality. And that's another one of my books, Deal with Your Realities. You need to know your own reality. If you know as a reality, my reality is, yes, I'm a very strong woman. Yes, I've been independent for all these years. Yes, I do my own thing. You need to deal with that, not you, Sister Katina, but you need to deal with that reality that, hey, this is who I am. Then you need to be forthcoming to the brother and say, listen, I can't tell you when I'm going to get to the point where I'm not going to let my issue come into our relationship. This is not a question of submission. This because biblically, submission is a two-way street. We both submit on a certain level. We both have different roles. We both have different functions. We are unified. We are equal in essence, not necessarily in function. And you have to be able to say to yourself, honey, I'm not that kind of woman. If you cannot handle that, I wouldn't be the woman for you. But a whole lot of times, women go into it in general with the attitude, this is who I am, take me or leave me. If you don't like it, there's about 15 more in line waiting on me because I got it all going on. I got a good job. I got my BBL and I got it all together. Take me or leave me. It shouldn't be the attitude. The attitude should be, let me put it out front. This is who I am. If you're willing to work with me, I'm willing to make a change at some point. I ain't never gonna ask a woman to change. I ain't never gonna ask a woman to change. Go ahead, Dr.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. See, that's what I talked about. I knew that colorism situation would open doors to so many conversations.
Thank you, sis.
One of our viewers, Mother Annie Lee, said it's a different world, different method, and thinking and reasoning than before. This just everything is different now. We don't have that. When my grandmother raised us and all, we don't have that submissiveness like that. It's a different world, a different time. So we keep it moving.
Does that make it right?
But no, because especially the dynamic has changed. Women now are making the money. Like, realistically speaking, it's hard to make it in a one-income household out here. If you got a family and you're married, it takes two people. So when you have that equality financially, it gives both people the right to say, hey, I have a say-so, I have authority in this, I think we should do this. It's not just dependent upon one person and what they think. Times have changed and people have to change with it.
Now, I will say this, Sister Katina, I will say this. I agree with the fact that time has changed. And to my brothers, I would say it appears, and to Sister Katina's credit earlier, I don't have statistics on this statement I'm about to make, but I think I can reasonably assume I'm right. In this change that we've made, there was also a change in men, because it appears to me now that a lot, not all, men are too easily desirable to reduce themselves to a role that's less than provider, protector. So in that regard, it creates the mindset of the woman that she has to be, I'm every woman, it's all in me. So I will bring some of the blame on my brothers as well, because we shouldn't put you all in that kind of position and then get upset when that's what we see. Because there is obviously some change there.
Oh, so are you saying you think if men were 100% on tap, that we'd get more submissiveness? That's what you're trying to say?
Well, I mean, I don't like the word submissiveness because—
Okay, fine. Give me another word.
Yeah, submissiveness is not the issue as I'm concerned. I mean, I've never had a problem with submission because my wife will tell you she gets whatever. She never have to ask me for anything. It's done. Right. So I don't worry about her saying, I need you to submit to me, because she automatically does it. And I've even in previous marriages, I've had that situation. What I'm saying is you cannot expect, you can, but it ain't gonna happen, a woman to respect you if you are not taking care of your business. And it's like to Katina's point, if you're not taking care of business, she got every reason in the world to say, look, I do it myself. Right. I don't need no man. I can do this myself. I don't need, my grandma used to call them breath and breeches, is what she called them. I don't need breath and breeches. That's what she said. So to Katina's point, she's right. I think I'll take some of that blame as a man for my brothers who have not stepped up and have put women in positions where they have had to take their role. They've had to be strong in. And I'll be the first to tell the women that's listening, I'm sorry. If you ever been with a man that put you in that position, gave you that mindset, I apologize on their behalf. Right. You know, I do. But you know,
I want to add this point to this conversation. You said something a minute ago, Dr. Smith, about not being in position. Well, you got to remember something that Katina said earlier. When times change and women begin to take more of a leadership role in certain households, it made the men kind of lazy because the mama did everything. So when they get into a relationship with a woman, they expect mama to be in that relationship. I mean, that mindset I'm saying. And so what happens is it makes the women have to take more of a role sometimes because the man is looking to be spoiled and be pampered. So sometimes we have to, when you want to be changed and when you want to really have a change in your life, you have to be honest. And it starts with being honest with yourself. If, you know, at the end of the day, if you spoil, like I'm a mama's boy, but I'm not a mama's boy. My mama had 3 sons, but guess what? We washed clothes, we cooked, we know how to do all, I mean, it wasn't that kind of spoiled now. She gonna spoil you affectionate wise. You know, she's gonna be there. My mom ain't never missed nothing big in my life. She's gonna be there for that. But when it comes to work and it comes to going to work, and my mom will tell you better go find something to do. Ain't nobody about to take care of you. When it was time for me when I was growing, I thought I was too grown and I was feeling myself. She said, okay, you got a 12 o'clock curfew. So it taught me how to respect certain things just growing up. It depends on how you're raised. All this stuff starts in the home. So, you know, so at the end of the day, we can go back and forth about who's right, who's wrong. But at the end of the day, we raising kids that don't know respect. So that's why when they get my children in their 20s, so now they're in relationships, and I'll be looking at it like, what are y'all doing? Like, because we didn't do that. But it's because I wasn't, a moment of transparency. I wasn't married with my kids. So my kids, you know, didn't grow up in a 2-parent home like that. So it's certain things that my sons, you know, had to learn, like, okay, that ain't mama. You know, mama's not gonna always be there for you like that. And I used to tell my son's mother, stop always agreeing with him in school when he's in trouble. Like, oh, the teacher don't like him. Like, those things follow us in adulthood because now it's somebody else's fault. Well, I didn't get a job because they fired me because no, you didn't go to work on time. It has nothing to do with the people. And so we have to, as men, I'll be the first to say, have to take responsibility for our own faults and our own shortcomings based on what we've been taught growing up.
Right. Yeah, I'm just not mad with any woman who has values and morals that says, I'm going to take care of me, whether you do or not. To that woman, I say, you don't need a man. You really don't. And if you have become so codependent on having a man because you want everybody to know, your friends and relatives know, I have a man, you need counseling. You need counseling because a relationship should bring value. It should bring benefit. Every person should bring something to the table that is going to make the quality of the other person's life a little bit better. And, you know, I will digress from my other point and say, Sister Katina has a great point. I mean, I understand why women think like that. I'm not in agreement with that thinking, but I do understand why.
Okay. So that we have spent 35 minutes on the subject that wasn't even on my notes. I'm saying that to the viewing audience that's watching us, because as a hot topic come up, we have planned, we had some things, but it was really in the back of my mind. And I wanted to cover that because I want us all in every aspect of your life. We want everybody to be whole. You need help with, we got Dr. Smith here. If you need help with relationships, if you want to know about different worship and how to worship, what is worship? Sister Katina, diverse. She's a Black woman who's about Black ethics. She gonna tell you. She's not scared to talk. That's the one thing I learned about her when I first met her. I was like, that girl's strong. She's strong in her opinion, and she's gonna give it to you. So that's the difference of having people just talk. Now our other guest, Dr. Michelle Robinson, gonna be very spiritual. She's gonna talk about spiritual stuff. Maybe she may prophesy, maybe not. We don't know. But I'm telling you, that's the kind of show you got. You're gonna have diverse information on the show. You need to bring your note paper and your pen, and then you can ask questions on YouTube or whatever form you're watching us and get your answers of your questions. So coming up on the 21st of September, we're gonna have an author on. The lady, she's really a prophet. She wrote a book, and this is really for women. She wrote this book a few years ago, And I want to, because one of my things that's really important to me is to dispel the myth that women have not been called to preach. That's still a vital point. So she wrote a book called Women Thou Art Called. So what's the call about? She's going to talk about on 21st. Some more guests. We don't know who else going to be on. We just going to do it. We're going to make it happen. So I appreciate you that's tuned in. I want you to know that's how we roll. It's just, we're going to give it to you. If you don't want it raw, you may not want to watch us because we're going to make it raw so you can be better. Is that right? Anybody got any questions on that statement?
I just want to say thank you to everybody, man, to your guests, hosts that's there with you. Thank you, especially you for being my brother, for allowing us this opportunity on this platform.
Well, I'm honored to have you. You guys, you got a lot of wisdom and knowledge, sir. Why wouldn't I have you? Now, let me tell you insight. Doctor, what happened? I got to tell his story. Last year on our show, I had a friend of mine on. She's a clinical Dr. Karen Holly. And on that show, I don't know what we're talking about, Dr. Smith was on that.
Let me see if I can get her to come just to put her face on the camera.
Okay, Doctor, you can do that while I'm talking.
She might be with a client, but let me see if she's not with a client.
Dr. Smith was a guest on the show, and Dr. Karen Holly was our clinical psychologist. She would give us clinical stuff about how we deal with certain situations. So Bishop Smith called me after the show and said, "Who is that lady?" That was last year, and since then, the two of them have gotten married. She is a great woman of God. She's a pastor, clinical psychologist. She owns a college, male and female. She's got 2 different colleges in Dallas. This woman of God is just a powerful woman of God. So they're now married. And I said to him the other day, I said, y'all must have some good conversation because all that knowledge in that house, it's got to be knocking up this wall. There she is, Dr. Karen Holly. Smith, how are you?
Hello. How are you?
I'm so glad you are doing well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is he
I
treating
am
you
too.
right? Is he treating you right?
Absolutely marvelous. No complaints whatsoever.
Well, you got a friend of mine for 30 plus years, so we know how to roll.
Yes, yes. And you look great. So things must be working extremely well for you as well.
God is good. He's keeping us. I just got this cough, this little throat thing went on all of a sudden, but we're good. Thank you so much. We look to have you on sometime.
Please do. Please do. I look forward to it. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Ernest?
I just wanted to say, there is, I'm a stickler for this. We go through so many things in life, but if you don't learn to live with what you're going through, what are you going through it for? And I know I'm kind of, people kind of mistake my personality because I'm so silly, but I'm really serious about certain things. It's very, I have an old person's first name and a young person's middle name. And that's really my personality. Like I'm old school on some stuff, but I'm so liberal on certain things. But when it comes to life and living and doing the right thing, I guess I'm just old school when it comes to like how do you view yourself? You can never treat nobody right if you don't treat yourself right. You can never respect another person unless you respect yourself. And I think so many times we get into certain relationships, certain situations, take certain jobs based on just a need at the moment. We need to start making decisions based on the future, not our projection, not where we are right now. Because when you make a decision about where you are right now, that may be the wrong decision because you're moving. You're constantly moving. You're constantly evolving when you should be. So when we get into these things of who's this and who's that, and I ain't about to do this, that's where you are right now. But can that person that you're trying to date or you're trying to go to business with, can you guys evolve together? And I think that's where I just turned 50 years old this year. And I think my mission, my plan, and my vision is to where am I going to be in 10 years? Even though I ain't gonna feel like traveling the country in the next 20 years, like I ain't saying health-wise, I'm saying like I want to be, my works should be getting me somewhere so I can have balance later on. And I think we need to chase balance instead of chasing our ego, instead of chasing what worked yesterday and what worked last night. It may not work tomorrow because the world is changing. The cash system is changing. The way we do business is changing. I mean, whether you like technology or not, there's certain things just never going to be the same no more. So are we going to stay there mentally or are we going to move with the times? Meaning, are we going to chase balance, the balance of life? And that's where I am with this. So I thank God for this platform and opportunity to share those views.
That's the third time you've been in my head tonight. The third time.
Oh, wow. He just said some stuff earlier.
Every single time he spoke, he said something that I was going to interject on my next opportunity to speak.
Wow. That's good. Y'all don't want to say mine. But you got something here to speak now?
I mean, Ernest said it all. I ain't got nothing else.
Okay. All right. So when we talk about, we're going to talk about your book a little bit. And what's the name of your book again, Katina? Okay.
Learning to Love Dark-Skinned Me. It's a children's book targeting the issues of bullying and colorism. It is a fictional story with fictional characters, but it is based on my childhood experience. It was really bad. And my mother, who is still living, God bless her, she's getting ready to turn 70 years old in about 2 weeks. She would stand in the door and watch me come home, like crying every single day. You know, your mama know when something wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? And there was even this one teacher who said something very inappropriate and implied that I was ugly. And that I don't remember much from childhood, but that really, really stuck with me. And when I became an adult, I started wearing makeup that was 3 shades too light. And I started, doing different things. I had a real complex about my skin. And when I started going to therapy, and also I'm in the middle of school, I'm 5 credits shy of getting my degree in psychology. And when I started going to school, I started learning where my traumas came from. And it gave me a deeper understanding so that I can help my community, because we need healing. And for some reason, we stay away from therapy like it's a bad word or like it means that we're crazy. But we really, really need to start going to therapy before we even start dating people. And when we start dating people, we need to start going more in depth with the questions and getting to know their soul instead of the surface stuff. Because if we did, we wouldn't be in these situations that we just spent the whole hour talking about.
Wow.
Because you got to remember, we dating people's representative for the first couple of years. So they're putting their best foot forward from jump. So at the end of the day, you do have to ask tough questions that knock them off their square. Because if you don't, and you find out later on that this person is actually crazy, or maybe I'm crazy. See, again, you got to be real with the whole thing. You might be crazy. You might be the one that needs the healing. It may not be always the other person. It may be something that comes up in your relationship that you need to get some therapy about. And I don't, you know what? It's a joke, but it's the truth. Christians, because I know primarily all our followers are probably Christian. Christians need to stop getting hands laid on them. And I don't hear this as a cliche and it's a joke, but it's the truth. Stop. You may not need hands laid on you. Maybe you need to go talk to somebody like Katina or Dr. Smith's wife. You might need to get some therapy and talk about it, because it ain't got to do with some stuff ain't spiritual. You've been talked to bad when you was a kid, and that has followed you your whole life. And that's what you're mad at. You're not mad at me, really. You're mad at the person that said that to you the first time. That's therapy. That's not hands laid on you. I'm not saying that God can't do it. I'm just saying that we have to get practical about what it is we're going through. And so, I applaud education and finding out what's really going on with you.
That's good. That's good. What are you going to say, Katina?
Nothing. I said
no, that's good, because that's very important, Ernest. Dr. Holly was the one who told us 2 seasons ago that the church has made a mistake. And now you see it more in the African-American church. You see more clinical psychology talking about needing help. Pastors are shying away from trying to counsel people, and they send them to a therapist or to a specialist. So that those things are happening because we need it.
I also want to emphasize that, there are some things that are just beyond your scope as a person, right? Yeah. It is okay to say, hey, I can't help you with this. You need to go talk to somebody, because we don't have all the answers. And 9 times out of 10, you might be telling somebody that's just flat out wrong. You might not help. You might send them over the deep end. You might just tear their life up. Okay. We are not equipped if we are not licensed to help people through certain things. And it's okay not to take that on, but you have to be kind about it and say, hey, I want you to be better. Let's get you some help.
Yeah. Shouting and speaking in tongues over your problems ain't gonna help them.
What? Here is my take on that. That's correct. But the bigger challenge is the church in general has not taught man that man is composed of 3 realities. Man is a spirit, who lives in a body, and possesses a soul, or his intellect. The word of God says that to the spirit belongs the things of the spirit, and to the flesh belongs the things of the flesh. The flesh is composed of your 5 general senses, which also has to do with your abilities to receive and deal with your intellect and those kinds of things. So you can't put a Bible scripture on something that is intellectual and expect to get the right kind of results. You deal with your spirit one way. You deal with your soul and your intellect another way. Yeah. So if I'm going to lay my hands on you because I feel like you got a demon and cast a demon out, when in reality you have a real mental bipolar disorder,
There you go.
that's doing you more damage than I am good.
That's right.
And you better
And
take the medicine.
Yeah, and that's right. What Katina said is right. You know, some people are just not equipped. It's okay to say you're not equipped for it. And what I think, and I know I'm very outspoken. It's okay. I can take it. I got wide shoulders. But at the end of the day, I think some leaders, I'm not going to say pastors, some leaders in certain organizations, they think that takes the power away from them if you go to somebody else to get counsel, to get help. They feel like they take their scope of their influence from you. And I think that we have to understand that it takes a team. LeBron James can't make the free throws, take the ball out the hole, do all the defense. He got to have teammates. And that's how you win championships with a good team. If you notice leaders today that have a great team around them, they're much more successful because they have a diverse team around them that can get the job done.
Wow, that's interesting. So I'm glad to have my team around me. Only person absent tonight is Dr. Michelle Robinson. Listen, Katina, how can people that's watching connect with you, get your book, and just be a part of what you're doing?
Where if you're here in the Metro Atlanta area, Learning to Love Dark Skin Me is selling in Madu Bookstore in Greenbrier Mall. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Anywhere books are selling, you can, get your copy. I'm on Instagram at author_KM Davis. You can follow me there for any updates that I might have coming. I have a coloring book coming out, and I also have another children's book, which is geared toward children of divorced parents. So look out for that.
Okay. All right. Dr. Smith?
Yes, sir. Repeat that for me.
How can people connect with you?
Oh, okay. Let's see. So you can catch me on Facebook under the official Power Couple. That's one of my things. You can write me at drwillardsmith@gmail.com. You can find me on YouTube under Dr. Willard Smith. You can find me on TikTok under Dr. Willard Smith. You can get all of my books off of Amazon under Dr. Willard Smith. That's probably enough for right now.
All right.
I'm everywhere.
Everywhere, Dr. Willard Smith. Everywhere, Dr. Willard Smith. What about you, Ernest?
Right now, you can get me. My website is www.ernestjleemusic.org. ernestjleemusic.org. On IG, I am EJ Lee Music. On Instagram, EJ Lee Music. TikTok, Ernest J. Lee Music. And on my Gmail is davisdancemusic@gmail.com. We're got some exciting projects getting ready to come out. Getting ready to drop a project on Keisha Grandy's getting ready to come out in 3 weeks. Keisha Grandy's from Kirk Franklin and the Family. Her record is hot. I'm doing a lot more taking clients this for the fall season. So we getting ready to do some great things, man. So if you want to connect with me on those sites, and we'll get with you then.
Okay, take the time, if you guys will, put that in the chat so that can be posted on the social media. Thank y'all very much for everything. Ernest, what's that song? Victory Is Mine?
That's my single that's out right now. Victory Is Mine. Her project is called Reborn. Keisha Grandy Reborn. That's coming out in 3 weeks. My single is charting right now. It's called Victory Is Mine. Ernest J. Lee featuring Gerard Brooks. He's an artist, pastor from Detroit, Michigan. Hot song. I'm not saying it because I wrote it, but it's a testimony song of where I've been, where I'm going, and my declaration of where I am right now. Victory is mine. All platforms.
Great. Thank you all so much. We got to get out of here. I just want to make sure I got an announcement they sent me. If you are an individual or family, you're receiving any type of Medicare coverage, you must re-register, even if you're receiving Medicare benefits now. The government is going to be removing and stopping benefits for all assistance programs, including the Peach Care for Kids. Until you re-register, you risk losing your benefits. You need to get to the benefits. You know where it is? Go to gateway.ga.gov. 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 You can get to me on all forms of social media. Dr. Keith Farmer, I tell you what, it's been a great show. This is our first show. You see what's going to be happening for the next 7 every other week. We're going to be on here, and we can't wait for you to join us. If you have any questions or things that you want this panel to discuss or answer for you, you can just inbox me on Facebook. We'll have the questions for them, and we'll be able to cover it. Until next time, you've been watching the Farmer Report with my crew. It's Katina Davis, Dr. Willard Smith, and Ernest Lee. Peace.
God bless.